Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Just a couple of announcements. The center remains closed because of the virus, because of the pandemic, and visitors are being discouraged because this is such an aggressive variant, this Omicron, that unless there's real strong reason for you to visit the center, and some of you do have such reason, but otherwise it would be best if we kept distance. So please do respect that. Starting tomorrow, our weekly classes will resume. On Monday, we're going to read and discuss some of the poetry of the Indian poet Tukaram. That's from the book Love Poems from God. Tuesday, of course, we're studying the life of Holy Mother. On Wednesday, we continue to study Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. On Saturday, we take up a new topic in, oh, wait a minute, I think we're starting a new book on Saturday. I've forgotten which one it is. Someone will have to remind me. So we're taking, I think we finished Realizing God, and we're taking up something else. And next Sunday's talk is titled Peeling the Onion of the Mind. The reason for that talk, of course, the reason for that title is January is a month for study of Jnana Yoga, Advaita Vedanta. As a Jnana yogi, you practice discrimination, reason, detachment, and satyagraha, insistence on truth. The goal is freedom from limitation, moksha. Our teachers say that all miseries in life are caused by seeing inaccurately. An earnest and persistent jnani may break through this misapprehension, maya, and see only the divine presence everywhere and in everything and in everyone. Are there any announcements that I should have made that I didn't think to make? All right, we'll begin. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. I shall pray to thee. I shall pray to thee. I shall pray to thee today. From deep in my heart, I promise now, I shall pray to thee today. Om Amen. Well, once again, welcome everyone to our new year. We so, in such a heartfelt way, hope that this is a wonderful and fulfilling new year for each of you, as you define that for yourself. This morning, we're going to define mental renunciation. The title of the talk is Mental Renunciation. What is that? This talk will define mental renunciation and how, if you wish, to make it a part of your daily spiritual practice. As is almost always said on these Sunday mornings, this is not meant as personal instruction for you. This is a review of what mental renunciation is and its benefits. If you see something in that for yourself, well and good. Take it, use it. If not, well, then it is simply good information for you to have should it ever become useful to you. Sri Ramakrishna often recommended mental renunciation to householders. Yet, because of the Master's devotional sadhana, his spiritual journey, because that is so dramatic, his teachings on the non-dual path, Jnana Yoga, are sometimes obscured. Sri Ramakrishna led his disciple Narendranath Datta, who became Swami Vivekananda, from an attitude of deep Western skepticism to a conviction that non-duality is the literal and most fundamental truth. Vivekananda said of Ramakrishna, he's all bhakti, devotion, on the outside, all jnani, knower of Brahman, on the inside. I'll repeat that. Vivekananda said of Ramakrishna, he's all bhakti, devotion, on the outside, all jnani, knower of Brahman, on the inside. This morning we'll discuss that inner Ramakrishna and his teachings on the householder jnani's path to freedom. Mahatma Gandhi said, the story of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's life is a story of religion in practice. His life enables us to see God face to face. No one can read the story of his life without being convinced that God alone is real and that all else is an illusion. Sri Ramakrishna said, discrimination is the reasoning by which one knows that God alone is real and all else is unreal. Real means eternal, and unreal means impermanent. He who has acquired discrimination knows that God is the only substance, and all else is non-existence. With the awakening of this spirit of discrimination, a man wants to know God. On the contrary, if a man loves the unreal, such things as creature comforts, name, fame, and wealth, then he doesn't want to know God, who is of the very nature of reality. Through discrimination between the real and the unreal, one seeks to know God. I'm going to read that again because this is the very key to what we're talking about today. Sri Ramakrishna said, discrimination is the reasoning by which one knows that God alone is real and all else is unreal. Real means eternal, and unreal means impermanent. He who has acquired discrimination knows that God is the only substance, and all else is non-existent. With the awakening of this spirit of discrimination, a man wants to know God. On the contrary, if a man loves the unreal, such things as creature comforts, name, fame, and wealth, then he doesn't want to know God, who is of the very nature of reality. Through discrimination between the real and the unreal, one seeks to know God. That's the end of the quote from Sri Ramakrishna. The Jnana yogi's practice of discrimination is sometimes called neti, not this, not that. Yet, as we'll hear, it is a path of affirmation as well as negation. At first, it is a stand the jnani takes, then ultimately comes to realize as the truth of his or her being. So it's a path of affirmation as well as negation. At first, it is a stand that the jnani takes, then ultimately comes to realize as the truth of her or his being. Now, many of us know that one of the great spokespersons, one of the great redefiners and reformulators of Advaita Vedanta, the Jnana Yoga path, is Adi Shankaracharya. What is it that you affirm? That is, repeat mentally over and over again until it becomes a new way of thinking about yourself. So, as we know, Adi Shankaracharya was a definer of this, that what is it that you affirm? That is, that you repeat mentally over and over again until it becomes a new way of thinking about yourself. Listen to a part of Adi Shankaracharya's Atma Shakatam. Quote, I am neither the body nor the senses, neither the mind nor the ego, neither the vital energy nor the intellect. I am the witness, the eternal and indwelling self, the infinite, beneficent being. I am the self, neither masculine, nor feminine, nor neuter. I am the all-pervading being, the light supreme. I am the light of the self, the light that is the inmost self, the supreme being, the light of lights, the light existing by itself. End of quote. So you can see in that statement, there is both negation, that which I am not, and affirmation, that which I am. Sri Ramakrishna's sannyas guru, the Nangta, naked monk, Totapuri, taught Sri Ramakrishna the non-dual path. Normally, as an orthodox monk, Totapuri stayed at one place. He stayed at no one place for more than 3 days. Yet his fascination with Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual achievements and the master's magnetic personality led Tota to remain at Dakshineshwar for nearly a year. At the end, he said, he had learned more than he had taught. What did Totapuri see that fascinated him so? A human being. This is the thing. This is the great mystery of the incarnations. Pleased as man with man to dwell. Our Emmanuel, our God at hand. A human being, Totapuri saw, who had attained and manifested the highest states of realization, yet who with equal spontaneity lived a life of intense involvement, joy, and merriment. An uneducated Bengali villager, an unschooled Brahmin priest, a self-effacing man who usually spoke softly with a slight stammer. This man had become a great teacher from whom the wisdom and reassurance of Sanatana Dharma, the eternal philosophy's scriptures, radiated like the life-giving sun in glorious spring. That's what Totapuri related that he had found in Sri Ramakrishna. In the Christian Gospels, we read that Lord Jesus taught, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. By these things, Christ primarily meant spiritual knowledge and understanding, as well as the traditional 4 fruits of a householder's life: righteousness, prosperity, fulfillment of legitimate desires, and liberation of the spirit. One way and another, this same message was woven into virtually every conversation with Ramakrishna, especially when he was speaking to householders.
Swamiji, could you
Yes?
please repeat what you said about householders' way? 4 things you said.
Oh, the 4 things that are traditional, the 4 fruits of a householder's life in traditional Hinduism: righteousness, dharma, prosperity, I've forgotten the Sanskrit word now, fulfillment of legitimate desires, artha. So dharma, artha, fulfillment of legitimate desires, kama, and liberation of the spirit, moksha.
Thank you.
One way and another, this same message, the message that Jesus Christ spoke, was woven into virtually every conversation with Ramakrishna, especially when he was speaking to householders. Sri Ramakrishna said, "If the devotee practices spiritual discipline a little, The guru explains everything to him. Then the disciple understands for himself what is real and what is unreal. God alone is real and the world is illusory. We may normally think of the non-dual as a complex, demanding spiritual discipline. Sri Ramakrishna's approach was characteristically simple, and his message was the same for everyone. First, realize God, by which he meant achieve Cetana Samadhi, the state Jesus meant when he said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." In this level of samadhi, sometimes also called savikalpa samadhi, there's still a trace of ego left, enough consciousness of the I to return and tell of your experience. So it is still an experience. Then Sri Ramakrishna promised, in that state of being, the divine presence itself, as the guru, will share with you everything else you need to know and give you the power and focus required to move on from there to complete spiritual freedom, moksha. Sri Ramakrishna's emphasis was on practice, that form of study, not learning from books. Sri Ramakrishna's emphasis was on practice, that form of study, not learning from books. Sri Ramakrishna said, "What can you achieve by mere scholarship, without discrimination and dispassion? God alone is real, and all else is unreal. God alone is substance, and all else is non-entity. That is discrimination." Yet the question naturally arises, don't we need to know a lot and purify ourselves first to practice? Sri Ramakrishna said no. He taught us, pray to God with a yearning heart. Pray to him for discrimination. God alone is real and everything else is illusory. This is discrimination. One strains water through a fine sieve in order to separate the dirt from it. The clear water goes through the sieve, leaving the dirt behind. Apply the sieve of discrimination to the world. Live in the world after knowing God. Then it will be the world of vidya, knowledge. Make a little but persistent effort to discriminate, starting from just where you are. The Master promised, if you practice only that little, someone will come forward to help you, to tell you. If you practice just that little, someone will come forward to tell you the right path. Sri Ramakrishna taught this to Im, the recorder of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Im lived on many years and became a recognized saint. So those are the principles and practices. Are there any comments from your own wisdom or experience? Any concern that this raises with you, or any question you'd like to ask? This is how we do this together. This is how we study the art of spirituality together. Please share any wisdom from your own experience. Please express any concern or ask any question.
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima?
I'm thinking the essence of the mental renunciation is purity in the heart, whatever we do. Am I correct?
Purity of the heart is required, but the ability to do the discrimination requires persistent mental effort. This is why it's called mental renunciation for householders, not the physical renunciation of a monastic, but the mental renunciation by repeating over and over to yourself that truth. That's what's meant by the practice of satyagraha. That those things that are in a householder's life, they cannot be avoided or evaded. Purity of heart comes through the persistent effort. So it is a circular upward rising path. And so one achieves at some point during this path, this Cetana Samadhi, this Savikalpa Samadhi, and then one sees, experiences that everything that occupies our daily attention is of the most secondary importance. That the truth of our being and the truth of being itself is that God alone is real. So when we return to our daily activities, we see them in a totally different light. Of course, they're necessary. If you have a job, and most of us have to have a job, then you must do your job well. And of course, Sri Krishna very carefully explains how to do that most successfully by doing it sacramentally. The same thing is true of your relationships with your near and dear, your spouse, your children, your other relatives. It is through this practice that God alone is real. So if that is true, then all these other things must be God. This is the vijnana, the special knowledge that Sri Ramakrishna spoke of, that you attain. So yes, purity of heart comes, and through it, we have these higher experiences. But the purity of heart comes by our insistence on the truth, even before this discrimination and insistence on the truth, even before we have these totally purifying experiences.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Haima. That was a
Thank
very...
you, Brother Shankara. I think it has to, that renunciation has to come from the thought level. The thought has to be changed in order to purify our heart,
Yes.
isn't it? It
Yes.
has to. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have to change the nature of our mind and our thinking.
Thank you, Brother.
Oh, may I share something?
Of course, Uma, that's what you're invited to do. Please do.
Thank you, thank you. In Sanskrit, there are two words, tyaga and vairagya. Tyaga can mean simply stopping to do something, giving up. Okay, I'm not going to do something today. I'm not going to speak ill of anybody, or I'm not going to eat something, whatever you like.
Mhm.
So it's a physical act of giving up. Whereas vairagya has to be mental, which you exactly said, how to discriminate between an act of giving up and mentally giving up. So mentally giving up requires more self-control, more, what she said, purity of heart, more conscious effort that Patanjali teaches about what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
But interestingly, in Bhagavad Gita, I was so happy to find substantiation of what you said. For example, chapter 4,
Mhm.
Krishna is talking about inaction, inaction.
Mhm.
And that is beautiful. You may perform all activities like we all do, householders, even Swamis, like you have to do some of the chores and whatever.
Oh, yes.
How you do it, if you do without ego, doership, if you do without expectation of the fruit of action, and if you do without any big deal or making it like, oh, nobody else can do it. So I am the doer. So when you give up that and determine mentally, so it starts here. And then if you act it out and put in action, then only it becomes perfect renunciation. Mere stopping, otherwise you are lusting in your mind. You know, if I give up smoking, God forbid I never smoke. But giving up something itself is not the correct
Yeah, no,
answer.
if you give up smoking but continue to want to smoke,
Yeah,
then the problem has not been solved. As Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the mind that created it.
yes,
So you must change the nature of the mind
yes,
before you can really change
right,
the actions on the outside, the nature of your involvement with those actions.
yes.
And so the next part of the talk will be about what is it, what attitude should we take toward ourselves? But
Right.
there's no reason to discontinue this conversation. If there's more expressions of your own wisdom and experience or any concern or question, please do ask it or say it.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Anything else from anyone?
Am I audible, brother?
Say it again.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Reggie.
Yeah. I was trying to trying to understand the context behind Durga Shaptasadi Chandi Path, and I came across a YouTube video from Swami Hari Namananda,
Uh-huh.
and it is marvelous. Like, I mean, he decodes that. Like he explains that it's really Brahma is your creative energy, and then he explains all the demons, like they are all these, whatever we have to renounce within us, all the stuff. So that's very beautiful. And I thought that sometimes if we try to renounce these things, it's very hard to really renounce. Like, it's insurmountable, and I thought maybe that is one way to let the Divine Mother like kill all of that. Like she will renounce in us.
Yes, well, as pointed out in the Chandi, in the Devi Mahatmyam, as he points out in decoding it, the she that is the mother, is us. That's what she says. I am you. I am everything, without exception. And so if we give her sway, that energy within us sway, this is not the jnani's way of dealing with it, Rajiv, which is why it hasn't been brought up in this context. There are these various ways of thinking and being that are represented by the four yogas as taught by Swami Vivekananda. And that tends to be a more bhakti related, a more devotional path, devotion to the mother and surrender to the mother, loving relationship with the mother, all of that. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's very pertinent. And for anyone who hasn't heard that talk by Swami Harinamananda, you can find it on our YouTube channel or our website in the archives. That talk was given here. Yeah. I think it's been, I think that was only audio recorded. I don't remember whether it was video recorded. But in any case, you can find a video of it if you go online and type in Swami Harinamananda and Chandi. So thank you, Rajiv. That was very pertinent.
I just shared the link as well for that YouTube video.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Anything else from anyone?
Can you hear me okay?
Sure can, Tom.
So my internet went down, so I missed part of what we said, but just before it went down, you were reading the thing about how the jnani must get free of name, fame, or the desire for name, fame, riches, and creature comforts. And I was thinking about myself. The only one I'm free of is fame. I have no desire to be famous. But other than that, creature comforts, really, I'm sitting here in my, heated house in my comfortable chair, drinking my coffee. And it's hard for me to meditate if I'm uncomfortable. I notice in the shrine room, I'll adjust the heat and the air conditioning. If I'm hungry, I'll go get something to eat. I am definitely strongly influenced by creature comforts, the need for creature comforts in order just to stop thinking about creature comforts. I don't care that much about riches, except enough money to buy the creature comforts, and which I have. So I don't, and I guess if people are thinking bad things about me, I try to correct them and make them think good things about me. Anyway, that's my story. That's how far I've gone with all that stuff. Thank you.
Well, perfect. And the fact that there is the continuous, and anyone who knows you can testify to this, the fact that there is continuous practice of meditation gives you a very different attitude toward life than most. And I would wonder, just as a personal friend of yours, whether you would first give up meditation or the creature comforts. I suspect that it would be meditation that you would not want to give up.
That's a good question, and I don't know. And I'm glad I'm not faced with having to make that decision. It's like Sophie's choice.
Right. Well, there you are. Knowing you as I have come to for these number of years, my guess would be that the compromise would be on the side of comforts rather than on the side of meditation. You personally might experiment around a little bit to see what happens if you decrease your meditative practice. But there seems to be a great grounding in that. So, but nothing is demanded of us. we, it has to come from within. So thank you, Tom. And as always, your sincerity and your straightforwardness is treasured.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Brother, this is Sundar here.
Yes, Sundar.
So, when we are talking about mental renunciation, say for example, like we discussed earlier, like a person who wants to give up smoking, but as you told, like, but mentally he has not given up, but physically he has given up smoking. So, where does, like, if a person wants to stop this smoking, he has this mental, he has mentally told that he is not going to smoke, but at the same time, as you told, like, he has not given up partially. So how does that, how can we conceive that thing?
Well, it is a partial renunciation, but as Sri Krishna points out in the Gita, there is an element of hypocrisy in it because they haven't really given up. They've only outwardly given it up because of some external reason, health or whatever, or they can't afford it anymore. I mean, cigarettes have become very expensive. So it is the insistence that that act and that desire is an element of unreality, that is impermanence, and that God alone is real, that is the only substance. Finally, that will, so to speak, dispel that hypocrisy if the person focuses on that. But there are many people who have renounced any number of physical actions, but they continue to wish to perform those actions. And one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest application of practical spirituality are the 12-step programs, Alcoholics Anonymous, and so on. Because they, by participating in them, you confront the fact that you continue to have a desire that you do not wish to fulfill. And so the steps, the 12 steps in those programs are the way that you ultimately resolve this inner conflict. But that's a very good question. You know, and we'll get an answer in the next portion of the talk about where the strength and mental conviction comes from to go ahead and do this. Thank you, Sundar.
I have a
Thank you,
comment.
brother.
Sorry. I have a comment slash question about this.
Yes.
Speaking of smoking or any other thing that someone wants to stop. I smoked for 14 years like an absolute fiend. I quit when I was 28 years old. And I really quit and I was good with it. And I, would just occasionally, maybe over the first 10 years after quitting, think about it. But then I really didn't think about it anymore. But I would continue to occasionally have dreams about smoking. And I know that people who are alcoholics in recovery dream about drinking. If you're still dreaming about it, does that mean you haven't quite renounced it yet?
No, I don't think so. I think that our subconscious is full of our mental impressions that were gathered from the past. And so the fact that it comes up in a dream would simply be an indication that the guna of rajas, of desire, had touched on that particular samskara, that particular mental impression. But as you described it, we live primarily in our waking consciousness. And this is one of the things we'll talk about next week. What are the components of our waking consciousness? But I don't think it means that there's in our subconscious, which is where our dreams come from, we're told, there are many mental impressions that can be energized by a brush of the gunas in dream sleep. So I don't think that it contradicts I don't think it means that you're being a hypocrite if you continue to dream about something.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is Tom again.
Yeah, Tom.
Well, first, I haven't drunk alcohol in 34 years, and I still occasionally will dream about it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think about it that much, but when I first quit, I remember a big turning point for me is when I realized it didn't matter if I thought about it, and it didn't matter if I wanted it. What mattered is if I drank it. And
Yes.
I could think about it all I wanted. I could fantasize about it. You know, I could fantasize holding a beer and putting it up to my mouth and pouring it down my throat. And I could have all of those fantasies, and it was just fine as long as I didn't actually do it. In fact, when I let myself have the fantasies, life got easier. So that's my experience. Thank you.
Well, that's part of the 12-step program. No doubt about it. Admitting that the desire is still there and confronting it. So thank you, Tom. As usual, your experience is very authentic.
Amadas here, Shankara.
Yes, Amadas.
My own journey through AA. At first, I went from drinking to not drinking, and I don't know when the demarcation came, but some period of years of not drinking allowed me to be free of alcohol, and that more resembles renunciation, because it's my understanding as a neurophysiologist that the subconscious doesn't hear negatives. So when I say I'm not drinking, my subconscious actually hears I'm drinking because it doesn't hear the not.
Right.
Whereas if the goal is sobriety, if the goal is freedom, that's the step beyond not drinking. That's the step beyond quitting. That's where freedom lives. And that's where renunciation lives also. The freedom of renunciation lives in the freedom.
Well, you've just foreshadowed what the rest of the talk is about, Amadas, not surprisingly. That is exactly it. These things don't disappear from the universe simply because we have discriminated against them. Thank you.
So, Brother Shankara, to be on the lighter side, if you give up whatever is your thing, your weakness or your addiction, at least there will be no physical harm. You may think and dream as much as you want to, but if you stop smoking, at least your lungs and your health will improve.
Yes, indeed.
It's not only hypocrisy, but there are physical advantages also. Okay.
Oh, no question. No question. And thanks for bringing that up. Yes, there are great benefits to even outward renunciation before we're able to do the inward renunciation.
Yeah, yeah.
So what about us as we sit here this morning? Who are we? And how shall we think about ourselves at this very moment? Narendra learned this truth from the Master. And as Swami Vivekananda, he said, without qualification, I'm going to repeat that. So what about us as we sit here this morning? Who are we? And how shall we think about ourselves at this very moment and ongoingly? Narendra learned this truth from the Master. And as Swami Vivekananda said, without qualification, come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep. You are souls immortal, spirits free, blessed and eternal. Ye are not matter, ye are not bad bodies. Matter is your servant, not you the servant of matter. Come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep. You are souls immortal, spirits free, blessed and eternal. Ye are not matter, ye are not bodies. Matter is your servant, not you the servant of matter. Therein lies the non-duality of Sri Ramakrishna's mental renunciation and his promise that we can, through practice, assimilate and realize the Master's knowledge of the highest truth. In those words lies the non-duality. Notice it has both the affirmation and the negation, what you are and what you are not. So that is the non-duality of Sri Ramakrishna's mental renunciation and his promise that we can, through practice, assimilate and realize the Master's knowledge of the highest truth. At the beginning of this talk, I sang some verses from the song We Shall Overcome, and I added a verse.
Yeah.
I shall pray to thee.
Yeah.
I shall pray to thee. I shall pray to thee today. From deep in my heart, I promise now, I shall pray to thee today. Swami Vivekananda told us in another context that what we are praying to is what he's pointing to in this that I just read. That divine being within, that soul immortal, spirit free, gives us the strength and courage and determination to be free of the delusion of the impermanent. The impermanent has its compelling attractions, no doubt. But the jnani's path says, I am not going to be limited in any way. And these attractions of the impermanent are limitations. And so the jnani says, and again, let me go back to the caveat at the beginning. This is not meant as personal instruction for you. This is not meant to tell you this is what you should do. This is simply an introduction to the ideas as expressed by Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda and Jesus Christ and other great teachers, Adi Shankaracharya, about the nature of reality with a capital R and the nature of the reality as we experience it as embodied beings. And the jnani says, this experience I have as an embodied being embodied by itself, all in itself, is a limitation. And so I discriminate against that. I discriminate against all limitation and set my sights on knowing the truth, the highest truth, realizing that truth. This is the jnani's path. Now there are 3 other paths. The bhakta takes an entirely different attitude toward it. The karmi takes a completely different attitude toward it. The yogi, as in Raja Yogi, takes an entirely different attitude about it. And that all has to do with being with and transforming the experience of the impermanent into the impermanent by those 3 various paths. But the jnani says, not this, not that, and then says, but this, that.
Mhm.
So any final comments or questions before we go to the prayer that closes the talk?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Bhagavat, I've been waiting to hear from you.
I think the word jnana should not be translated as knowledge, but illumination, discernment, so that we know that information is not knowledge. Because we considered staying in a comfort zone, we considered obvious evils, so to speak, like alcohol, like smoking, but we have to get out of that one because there are some more subtle obstructions that we have placed on ourselves.
Ah, yes.
And it is very discomforting to explore them. While it is so easy to denounce alcoholism and smoking. For example, many times as Tom was speaking, I was thinking that Swami Vivekananda loved America. He loved some of the comforts that America offered, but he was not sinking in that comfort. He used that comfort in order to explore the aim for which he thought he had been given a birth. So the problem with the comforter is you can easily sink into it and not even know it. But our idea is to enjoy, employ the comforts for the higher goals that you have. Particularly, I wanted to say, for example, as a householder, if you are doing your reading, your prayer, your mantra, and some emergency comes, of a very trivial nature, if you have to get up and interrupt, are you really upset? Because I have seen many people saying, see, I was interrupted. See, I could not do anything because of the household work. See how it kept me away from what I really wanted to do. Today I could not read. That's the reason why I very much liked the small little statement that you made, that book is not the means to see God.
Yes.
Because if you read one less chapter, it is not going to make any difference.
Yes.
Durga in Chandipat, when she was told that these demons are harassing us, she says, I am in a tapa right now. I'm meditation, I cannot come right now. She didn't say that. Shankara, Durga, the moment a challenge comes, upon a split second without thinking, they accept the challenge, because that also is true spirituality, and that to me is true knowledge.
Yes, exactly, Bhagarat. If you're attached to the cushion and feel as if something is wrong, if you must leave the cushion, then you've missed the point. As Swami Yogatmananda said, if you go to sit for meditation and your mind persistently says, I want a cup of tea, then get up, have the cup of tea, with the resolution that you will come back to the cushion. As you said, Swami Vivekananda loved this country. Among other things he loved about this country was chocolate ice cream and cigars. He loved chocolate ice cream. He really liked it. And he was very fond of a fine cigar. Now, does that mean he wasn't a monk? Well, there were some who thought so. That's just plain foolishness. Because if cigars and chocolate ice cream had disappeared from the universe, he would have given it a thought and then said, well, fare thee well. So anything else from anyone? Thank you, Bhagarat, as always.
Brother Shankara, this is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
When you just told that story about Swami Vivekananda, I was sitting here going, man, I would really like a good cigar right now.
Ah, yes.
I haven't had a cigar in 10 years.
Yep.
Because I saw that it wasn't good for my health, so got rid of it. But and it's funny how those things still, as everyone has said, absolutely true. They're still rumbling around your head somewhere or wherever it is.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's according to what we're told by not only the Vedic teachings, but also from Jill Bolte Taylor, the great neuroanatomist. It's all recorded here, or in the cells of the body, in the nervous system. Every impression that we've ever had, everything that has ever happened to us is recorded in one way or another. And that's yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, one more comment. It seems like on this path, I noticed in my reading or hearing from other members of the class, aversion is incorrect, as is strong, desire. So, but what I've noticed is, it seems like a lot of these things are fading in my consciousness. Some aversions are fading, and also some strong desires, where maybe not the greatest behaviors that I have, are fading. They're fading. I know that I'm not saying they're all gone. Don't get me wrong, but I just want to make that comment. It's a transformative power here.
Oh, yes, there is tremendous transformative power in spiritual practice. I mean, every one of the great teachers has said, just turn toward me and follow my teachings, and you'll see things change. Put first things first in their system of priorities, and naturally things. Krishna puts it so sweetly in the Gita. He says, turn to me in utter devotion. I see no mistakes. I see no sinner. He says, holiness itself shall transform you. And so that is what you've just been talking about, Fred, that these things fade. We're told that they only go dormant because it's like a plant that you stop watering. Eventually it falls over. But if there were seeds, if you water the seeds, they'll spring up again. So it's where our attention goes that governs what is present in our awareness. Thank you, Fred. That was good.
Thanks.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Yes, also just an observation that the composition of your likes and dislikes changes over a period of time, and you tend more towards nature and natural things than the external materialistic things, your dislike and likes change over a period of time as you evolve spiritually.
Yes, and if you read the book Love Poems from God, you'll find that that is a great refuge for each of those saints, the natural world, and the purity and simplicity of the natural world, even its predator-prey aspects. Thank you, Hera. Thank you. All right, here is a prayer that most of us already know. If you do know it, please mentally repeat it along with me. Om Hari Om, Om Asato Ma Satkamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amrutangamaya, Abir Abir Moiti. This prayer can be translated this way. O beloved one, lead us from this realm of noisy confusion and delusion to thine abode of to thine abode of silence and clarity. Lead us from this realm of noisy confusion and delusion to thine abode of silence, sanctity, and clarity. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through with thy everlasting presence. And if you wondered what you might pray, that Sri Ramakrishna said, pray to the divine. This is one very simple, very straightforward prayer that says so much. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya, Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritangamaya. Abir, abir, mighty. O dearly beloved, lead us from this realm of noisy confusion and delusion to thine abode of silence, sanctity, and clarity. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence.
Brother Shankara,
Yes,
is it
dear.
possible to repeat this again, please?
The prayer?
Yes,
Oh,
your version of the,
ah,
not the Sanskrit one, but the English one. Sorry.
okay. Lead us from this realm of noisy confusion and delusion to thine abode of silence, sanctity, and clarity. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Any last thoughts? All right. Once again, dears, may this new year bring you fulfillment of your deepest and longest held desire. May it bring you success, however you define success. May it be joyous. May it even be exhilarating. Om Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until tomorrow evening, for those of you who wish to join us for the study of Tukaram's poetry, we read the poems and then discuss them among ourselves, those who attend. It's not a class, it's not a lecture. And then on Tuesday, we'll talk about the life of Holy Mother, reading from Swami Chitanananda's book, Sri Sharda Devi, Her Divine Play. Wednesday, we'll take up chapter 15, I guess, of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. And I honestly have forgotten what book. If anyone remembers, please say it. What book it is?
I think it's How to Know God you mentioned. You were debating which one to do, whether Bhagavad Gita or How to Know God.
I think it's How to Know God. Swami Prabhavananda's, thank you, Haima.
Yes, Brother Shankar.
It is Swami Prabhavananda's translation and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he titled it How to Know God.
It's not Divine Grace. Was that going to be another?
Oh my goodness.
No, I thought I don't know if that was what was going to be taken up on Saturday or on Tuesday when
or Wednesday, as we're just about to finish Jnana Yoga. I think it'll be on Wednesday. We'll take up the book Divine Grace.
Okay. Okay. Yay.
I think so.
Like
So,
both
yeah,
of those books.
there's going to be some changes in the new year. Just watch your newsletter and the website, the Facebook page. You will be able to find out about all these things as they unroll. And next week, using a metaphor that Sri Ramakrishna was fond of, the title of the talk is Peeling the Onion of the Mind. So, any final thoughts or comments from anyone?
Yes. Hope it doesn't make us cry.
Oh, I hope it does make you cry, dear.
But
I
only
hope
good
peeling
tears.
that onion does make you cry.
We've
Yes.
cried enough this year. Only good tears for 2022.
Right.
And Happy
You
New
know,
Year.
the way to keep from crying as you peel an onion is to put it under the water. So you put it under running water. And so we'll have the running water of the pure truth running over the peeling of the onion.
There you go.
Well, another way is to store it in refrigerator. That's what I heard. Yeah, if you keep it in fridge, it doesn't make you cry.
Ah,
If you put a saltine cracker in your mouth while you're chopping, it also works.
But we'll get the Vidalia sweet onions.
all right, dears.
Onions, how to cut onions.
Yes. Well, as Rabia said, she tried painting, but she preferred slicing potatoes. So, all right, dears. Until next time.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, all. Thank you, brother.
Happy New Year all. Thank you.
Jai Shri Ramakrishna Jai Ma. Bye.